Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Strength Students Podcast. I'm your co-host, Steve Carty.
And I'm your other co-host, Nick Scopoletti.
And we are here with one camera because I broke our other one. So we're going to have to fix that. So we have one camera for right now.
Right.
Yeah, good shit. Good. Brand new camera's broken. Today's episode we have for you is awesome. We interviewed the dudes from Project Purple, which is an organization in Connecticut, Beacon Falls, Connecticut. They're essentially the breast cancer awareness of pancreatic cancer.
Okay, I was like, what? I thought nothing.
No, yeah. They're like they run a nonprofit that is essentially they're spreading awareness about pancreatic cancer.
Right.
So that's an awesome interview. That's who we're going to be talking about today, and the way it kind of ties into strength and conditioning is what they do is a lot of endurance like competitions like marathons, half marathons, 5Ks, things like that, and that's kind of their thing. That's what they do. Like they do like the Boston Marathon and shit.
New York City Marathon.
Yeah, New York City Marathon.
The owner Dean. So his father had pancreatic cancer, and he found running as a way to deal with that stress. Pancreatic cancer is one of those things. It's becoming like the number 2 killer.
3.
He said number 3.
I believe
killer.
they said 3.
In the U.S. Of all the cancers and everything. So it's one of those things. There's no early detection. So when you find it, it's kind of like 75% of patients die within the first 6 months, which is
it's a rough one.
It's horrifying. Yeah, it's sad to think about. But
so that was nice to talk to those two. But before we start that, some quick announcements. Make sure you guys go to our YouTube page, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure you like us, subscribe, and follow us at Strength Students Podcast. Make sure you go to iTunes, Stitcher, give us a 5-star review, which would be awesome. That really helps us out. And just to get your feedback, too. You know, we want to hear what you guys like, what you guys don't like, fetishes, all that shit. Also, we got some big changes coming up. All right. Little spoiler, we might be changing the name of things around here.
Changing our given legal names.
Oh, yeah. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have more on that. We don't want to give away too much more, but that's what we're going to be doing. So be on the lookout for that. What else? Any other announcements?
That's it, man. I can't really think of anything.
Word. So if we're done with announcements then, sounds like it's time to slide into those DMs. Send some news.
I don't know why I laugh every week.
Every time.
So send news this week is an article I found actually listening to a podcast that kind of reminded me, another podcast, not ours. It reminded me of this type of training. So it's called strength aerobics. It sounds like a class at a Globo gym, but actually was written about in the book Super Training. Long time ago by the Russians. It's a way to just build a bigger base. It's a way to get your aerobic work in with using strength training movements. Example, you pick like a push, a pull, a squat, a core movement, a hip hinge, something like that, and you'll do them for tempos. So you do 3 seconds. It's nonstop, so it's 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up, slow and very controlled. You'll do about 3 to 5 rounds of that, and it's just a good way to build up the type 1 fibers, build up a little bit of endurance, build up your base, and it's not boring because you're doing strength training movements, so you're not just walking on a treadmill. I found that it's also good for prevention of injury. Build a bigger base. Chances are you're going to be a little bit better shape, feel a little bit better. Be ready to take those. This could be so sexual. Heavy loads. Take those heavy loads from lifting. So kind of prepping, building a bigger engine is really what the name of the article is. So yeah.
Go check that out, man.
That's that one. It'll be linked in our bio.
Yeah, those are our nudes that we're sending you this week. If you guys have any nudes that you'd like to send to us, we'd love that. Dr. Nick is he's a fan of Send News. He's always sending us nudes, so thank you, Dr. Nick.
They're not even articles. They're just pictures of him. It's weird.
Yeah, and banana suits.
Oh, my God.
Anything else with Send News? That's it? Good.
I think that's it.
All right, now it's time for some training wisdom, guys. Training wisdom of the day, okay? I was thinking about this last night a little bit and today. Your training wisdom for today, whether you're competitive or not, always remember that the time for competition is when it's time for a competition, right? Unless you have it made up in your mind or you and your coach have it made up that, all right, today in training, we are going to compete. You are going to compete. You're going to go as hard as you can. You're going to compete as hard as you can today in training. Unless that's the case and you are just training, then kind of take that competitive mindset and kind of sweep it under the rug for the day, right? Just train that day. For example, if you come in and you're doing cleans that day, right? And you're just not 100%. You're not feeling 100%, right? You're failing reps, all this stuff, but you're trying to be 100%. So you're trying to continue to compete, right? That mindset of whether you're tired or whether you're, sick or not feeling it, you got to bust through and you need to conquer your training for the day. Just put the bar down, man. Slow it down, train, find some positive points for the day and work on those and just get under the bar and do some work, right? Because that is not going to be that's not sustainable over the long term of your training, right? If you're just competing day in and day out, you're going to burn yourself out. And then when it comes time for competition, you're not going to be able to compete, right?
Nope.
If you're on a platform, if you're on the competition stage, yes, that's the time to pull it all out, go 100% no matter what, balls to the wall, go till failure, all that. But if you are just training week to week, day to day, drop the bar if you need to. Don't go for that extra rep if you feel like you can't. If you feel like especially if your body's telling you, dude, you might get hurt if you try this, then don't do it. It's just training. Training is to work on things. Training is to discover new things that you need to work on, etc. Training is not the time to, unless you have it planned or determined ahead of time that day in training you are going to compete. Training is not for competing. Okay, so train while you train and compete while you compete. That is today's strength training wisdom of the day. Anything else before we start here? Okay.
That's it.
Hope you guys enjoy. We were talking to the two founders, the two guys who run Project Purple. So hope you guys enjoy that. Want more of the Strength Students podcast? Go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, make sure you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and on Stitcher. Stitcher, I just met her.
All right, we are here with Project Purple. These two handsome fellas.
What's up?
Guys, introduce yourselves. Give all of our listeners your titles, what you're currently doing.
And your name.
And your name.
Cool. I'll go first. Vin Kampf just came on about 2 months ago with Project Purple. I'm the program coordinator for the CrossFit events that we do. I met Dino about 3 years ago now at a CrossFit event. Was affected personally. My uncle passed away, then 2 best friends' mothers passed away in months of each other. So this opportunity came along to help spread the word about pancreatic cancer, help get into the CrossFit field for our area, and I jumped on it, and been the best 2 months in a long time that I've been able to work somewhere.
That's awesome, man.
That's a free testimonial. My name's Dino Verrelli. I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purple. How I got here was my dad was originally diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in December of 2008, and then re-diagnosed stage 4 metastatic pancreatic cancer in March of 2010. And I founded Project Purple in September of 2010, going through our family's personal experience and watching my dad basically die in front of my face, in front of my eyes. And so I'm the founder, so I've become really kind of the face of the organization, I guess I would say. Not a job that I envisioned, but something that I've embraced and have gotten us to where we were, just this idea back in 2010 of just helping people and trying to fund research for a cure, to where we are today, where we're one of the top organizations in the world, believe it or not. Here in the United States really drives what happens worldwide with this disease. So we've become a world leader in the endurance space, using running, CrossFit to fund our programs, which are patient aid and also research. So I oversee the day-to-day responsibilities. I'm out on the road a lot, promoting events that we're involved with, recruiting runners, and getting involved in the cancer community and raising awareness for our mission, which is a world without pancreatic cancer, and assisting others in doing so.
Awesome. So we'll get into, since we are a fitness podcast, we'll get into the fitness side of things. Dino, we'll start with you. Just get into how you got into running marathons. And you told us earlier you ran 3 in 21 days.
Yeah. I didn't start that way.
You're an insane man, but go ahead.
Yeah, so tell you a little bit about my background. So I played collegiate basketball, small school in Rhode Island, Roger Williams University, Division III school, and always thought I was in really good shape. That changed quickly. I think when you come out of school and you're still young enough, and I was playing in a couple summer leagues and was still playing somewhat competitive basketball. And I had started my own financial services company after about 9 years in the corporate America world, working for various insurance companies, and was still very active, right? Still going to the gym, and my dad got sick, with this terminal disease, and I had young kids at home. Had my own business. Life was a little stressful. I just turned to running. And at the time it was like a mile, 2 miles, but there was something really cool about that. I'd go out on that run and I just would be out there on my own. And I've always been an early riser. So I get up at 4:00 in the morning and I get my workouts in before the day gets going. And I remember, when it started, I was just out there, it's pitch black. There's not a lot of traffic. The moonlight, and it's just really surreal, man. Like you're out there, in the middle of nowhere sometimes, and just you have a lot of clarity, and things just started to click. And I just fell in love with that. I don't know, maybe it was the high, the endorphins, as you work out, whether you're lifting or CrossFitting or something, you reach that moment, and for me it was running, and it was just being out there, and I was just like, wow, man, like I had so much clarity and I could figure things out. And at the time, I was like, wow, I could do this for my dad. We could do this. And it was just little things, like, take him to, or cut his hair at home because he didn't want to go to the barber shop, and just make him feel good about himself, and just these little tiny things. And, that started to lead, and I just started to get like hooked on the running. And so, in 2010, I had this crazy idea. I was also an entrepreneur. So I looked at the space, the pancreatic cancer space, and no one was really using running the way I envisioned it. My mom was a breast cancer survivor once at the time, and we had done something with Susan G. Komen, and actually breast cancer is kind of, the mirror image that all the cancer charities look at because they see the progression, the positive progression that breast cancer has made, and Susan G. Komen has kind of led that charge. So I was like, let's see, maybe we can do this with running. And we needed to raise a lot of money. We needed to raise a lot of awareness. And so I was like, that's it. We're going to start running. So when we started, I'll tell you a funny story. We're sitting I rallied some friends and some family members and some strangers at the first board meeting. And it was just like a table like this. We're all sitting around. And I was like, all right, how are we going to launch this thing? What are we going to do? And running was talked about, as kind of being, there were some runners in the room. I look around. I was like, all right, what ideas do we have? And someone said, well, let's do a wine tasting. I'm like, okay, great. Let's do a gala. I'm like, all right, great. What groups are doing that? What, we need to kind of make some noise. And I looked over, and my wife was on the board at the time, and I looked at her. And I was like, hey, I got this idea. Let's do 13 half marathons in 13 months. And a half marathon's 13.2 miles. And everyone looks around and they're like, that's a pretty cool idea. And I was like, all right, who's going to do it? And they're like, well, it's your idea, so you're going to do it. I'm like, all right. So I looked at my wife. I'm like, you cool with this? And she's like, all right, yeah, we'll do this. So that's how we kind of kicked off things, and that's how I got into heavy running. And so actually we incorporated in September 2010, and then in April of 2011, we kicked off, running 13 half marathons in 13 months. And when all was said and done in 13 months, I ended up doing like 19 half marathons, a multitude of 5Ks, and I was actually able to run the Boston Marathon. And I got a number 7 days prior to the marathon. I got a call. I'll never forget this. It was Easter Sunday, where I was at my in-laws with my wife and her family. And I get a call, and I look over at her, and I said, hey, I've got an opportunity to run the Boston Marathon next Sunday. What should I do? She's like, you run it? I was like, okay. And up until that point, I remember I had never run past 13 miles. I was in pretty good shape, like half
so
marathon
you've never
shape.
done a marathon before?
Never done a marathon.
Okay.
And so this was April 2012. So I remember going into the race, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun.
Just keep telling yourself
Just keep
that.
telling yourself that. And that was the first marathon experience. And for those of you who run, Boston 2012 ended up being the hottest Boston they ever had on record. It was 89 degrees. And so it was absolutely insane. It was one of the most memorable days of my life. I remember starting way in the back, and it was just really surreal. And the other thing that I realized about running, guys, was that anyone can do it. And this was really the first big race that I was involved in. And, being all the way in the back of the race, there were people with one leg. There were blind people. There were people that were, 400 pounds. Right. But they were all doing this, and it was just really, really inspiring. And that was the other thing, that I was attempting to do, was really inspire people, being, stricken that our family had, my dad was going to die.
Yeah.
We didn't know when, but he was going to die. And I was not okay with that, but I had that reality of that. But if we could inspire people that were in the same situation and give them hope or give them an outlet, to do something in a positive way because of this super negative thing, that could be awesome, And so Boston was really cool. I ended up not stopping, literally running until like mile 21 to the top of Heartbreak Hill. I think it was like mile 22. And then I just like totally, I hit the wall, as they say. And like those last, 4 miles were just absolute hell. And it was nuts, man. It was absolutely nuts. But, it's like one of those things, every time I've run a marathon, after it, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? And then like the next day, like literally like, all right, what's the next one? Like, let's do the next one.
Right.
And that's what it was like. And so that experience kind of slingshotted us and, into the running. And that's when I became a runner and just kept on running, and like almost like Forrest Gump, man. I did not stop.
Did you have a cool beard too, or what?
I did. I have trying to grow, November, Movember, and I've supported.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I've always tried to support so many causes. Naturally, my mom now is a 2-time breast cancer survivor, so we support breast cancer and so many other causes and stuff. And my cousin is a lymphoma survivor, so I have grown out a beard. The problem is like it's really gray. And it gets really crazy, and I don't know, man. You guys were rocking the beards, but I just the sweat, guys, yeah. Like I tried, man. I literally did, man. Like 2 years ago, and I've got some really creepy pictures.
Dude, just dye it purple. No one will say anything.
That maybe that might be it. That's a good idea, but it just gets kind of crazy, man. I don't know.
I love that story because you're talking about people. I love that story about the board meeting, and people are talking about the gala and like, let's have a fancy dinner where everyone wears a tuxedo. But like, I think, and not to say those people aren't passionate about helping, but it's like when you get runners or CrossFitters or people into fitness and Spartan race, and that's why, we love fitness. They are passionate people. Yeah. And so to get, to target the marathons and be like, this is where it's at. It's not like putting on fancy clothes and like, please donate, I that's what I love. That was an awesome story.
Thanks.
So now fitness side for you, Ben, you're up. Let's hear about your fitness life here and how you got involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, a little bit different. I'm not a runner at all.
Good.
I'm a baseball player. I played D1 at Sacred Heart University.
Nice.
And obviously I played third, so it's reaction time. It's sprinting to first. No running whatsoever. Got out of college, got injured in college. Never played. Just was the basic workout guy. Global gym, buys, tries, back buys.
Hell yeah.
The typical stuff.
That's how we all start.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Was introduced to CrossFit, and same thing. I was like, oh, what is this? Like, what am I doing? So I went to a workout, and it was at CrossFit Milford when they just opened. I forget the year, but it was way back. They were one of the first gyms in Connecticut to open.
I remember that too, yeah.
So I went, tried it out. I think Jay Layden, the owner, his wife put me through a workout. I think it was like Helen or something, like 400-meter run, pull-ups and kettlebell swings. I left. I think I might have puked in the back, and I was like, what the hell is this? Never coming back. And just like Dino said with the running, I was back like the next day. signed up and been in CrossFit ever since. It gave me that outlet, that competition side of things, where it's, internal competition. I can do better than that. Why was that so hard? But also just watching everyone else. I like the overlap, that, it is scalable to everybody. So like Dino said with the running, it didn't matter who you are.
Right.
It was, 60-year-old women in there, 17-year-old kids, whatever the case may be, in shape, people that wanted to lose weight, gain weight. That's a part that really, just hit home with me. So that's, been in CrossFit ever since. Not a competitor, just go in, do the hour, I coach it.
Yeah, I feel you.
I just don't have that desire, I guess, to put in 6-7 hours of training every day of the week to go to the games or something, but
it's a lot of training.
Yeah,
dude,
it's
a lot.
It's ton.
It's nuts. They don't have lives, man.
Yeah,
like,
it's nuts.
It's hard.
So I actually, my girlfriend's on the CrossFit Milford team, so they went to the games this past year. So just watching what they put themselves through and, the dedication that they did, it's crazy. And I give them all the credit in the world. But I coach it. I had a full-time job. At the time, I was a pharmaceutical rep for 10 years. Had its ups and downs. Obviously, the way pharmaceuticals are, everyone gets bought out and everything. So actually last year, I was actually laid off through a merger and a buyout. Was still coaching and everything, but was interviewing, and at this point in my life, I'm 38, going on 39, and it was like, what do I really want to do? I was interviewing, and I could have had some jobs, and it was like, I'm not going to be passionate about that. I wanted something I was going to be absolutely passionate about. The coaching was one of them, so I was still doing the coaching. Backtrack a little bit, I met Dino. Always done fundraising and stuff for different charities. My grandmother passed away of just general cancer. Have 2 other uncles that passed away of just lung cancer, and one uncle that passed away most recently of pancreatic cancer, which was the first time it really hit home with me. One of my best friends is a 4-time breast cancer survivor. So always 4 times. She is absolutely the most inspirational person I know.
She's got to be pretty tough.
Yeah, she's a badass.
Absolutely.
If you ever see me #NeverQuit, that's her.
Okay.
Inked in pink. I don't know if you guys heard about her, but she's an absolute badass, and she's one of my best friends. I'll do anything for her. So got into a lot of fundraising for her and doing that. Then when my uncle was diagnosed, it sort of hit home with me that the pancreatic severity of the pancreatic cancer. That was 2 years ago. About that time is when I did my first charity fundraiser with Dino and Project Purple, the push-pull event. That goes on throughout the course of November. Did it the following year at my gym down in Shelton that I was coaching at. And then one of the other coaches at the gyms, her mother was diagnosed, passed away. And then most recently, my best friend from childhood's mother was diagnosed in Memorial Day, and she passed away on July 4th. So not even a month.
I was going to say.
Just under a month. And she was like a mother to me, the absolute best woman in the world. She would do anything for us, is go over the house and there's a spread, food, drinks, whatever you wanted. She was awesome. So that was a hard one for me too, because just to see how quick it progressed. At the time that was going on, we were heading out to the games with CrossFit Milford. Dino had contacted me and was like, hey, do you want to bring out some shirts and just raise awareness? I was like, absolutely. So I brought out some shirts. I got some I think I gave some to Dave Castro. I have a little video of that, and just helped spread the word out there. And it came back, and I guess the rest is history. Met with Dino, and he had this opportunity, and I'm thankful for it. Everything happens for a reason. Was unemployed for a year, was struggling for a little bit, but this opportunity was presented to me, and like I said earlier, it was absolutely the best decision I've made, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to continue to help end this or find a cure or find that progression along the way, so other people don't have to go through losing a loved one or a friend or a mother within that month, 6 months, whatever the time may be. Just let's extend that. So my first marathon experience, went out to, or my first one was the Twin Cities, up in Minnesota, St. Paul, and then first big one, I guess, would be your second largest marathon in the world, the Chicago Marathon. Just in the United States. Sorry about that. Just the inspiration, meeting the runners that were running for Project Purple and hearing their stories and why they were running. And I'm still trying to put into words like the event as a whole. But like Dino said, when we were sitting at the 3 mile mark, the first bridge, and the first people that come through are the wheelchair, the adaptive athletes. Then the amputees come through, and then the elites come through that are just like, where'd they go? It was like 4-minute miles. I'm like, what the hell's going on right now? How are they running so
Bunch
fast?
Bunch of Kenyans just speeding by you. Yeah,
it's like, what?
They don't lift much.
Yeah,
no.
And then just the regular 40,000 plus people coming through of every shape, size, race, religion, ethnicity, coming through with smiles on their face. This is at mile 3. Then we switch bridges. I went over to the mile 12 marker, and same thing. You see the wheelchair guys come through, the amputees come through, the blind people come through, and then at mile 12, which it's a long time to be running. Everyone's coming through. Dino's on a microphone or a megaphone out there yelling at people because they have their names on the shirt. But
that's great.
Everyone's getting yelled at, but everyone's just extremely happy.
Right.
They're putting their body through this hell of running, for so long, and they're smiling as they're passing by. And I keep telling people that I talk to, it's like for 4 or 5 hours, religion didn't matter, politics didn't matter, race, size, sex, color of your skin, nothing mattered. Everybody was one, and everybody was just being inspired. And it really hit me hard. And I ran my first 5K in Chicago, and I've been doing a couple of times running, and it does just running. I ran this morning for the first time on a Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. What am I doing up right now? But did 4 miles. It's the longest I've ever run in one. Fell asleep, slow and steady, but it is that time just to, you're collecting your thoughts, and you're just out there serene. Sun's rising. It's absolutely amazing. So. I don't know if I'll ever do a marathon per se, but
never say never.
That's what he thought. He said, "I'll never do CrossFit," and then
I will say I have talked about doing a half. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
You'll fucking do it.
I still screw that CrossFit stuff and start running now.
You'll absolutely do it.
Yeah.
One of the things I definitely want to get into is, you said pancreatic cancer is it's on the lower end, especially financially. If you could explain, though, it's probably one of the most severe, correct?
Yeah,
and if you could explain pancreatic cancer for the people out there.
Yeah, so, pancreatic cancer currently sits at number 3 killer of all major cancers in the United States. It just surpassed breast cancer. So this year, according to American Cancer Society report that they released in the beginning of the year, it went from 4 to 3. So this year it'll kill 43,000 people. 53,000 will be diagnosed. And it's projected, there's statistical data that by 2020 it will become the number 2 killer of all major cancers in the United States. Every 83 seconds, someone in the world is diagnosed with the disease, which is pretty fascinating when you start to break down numbers. And in terms of why, there's no early detection. Breast cancer has mammograms. Prostate cancer has a PSA. Colon cancer, you can do a colonoscopy. Other cancers, you can feel tumors, and, you can see things potentially. With pancreatic cancer, and I'll ask you a question. Do you know where the pancreas is, first of all? From an anatomy standpoint. Yeah, somewhere down there. Yeah, no kidding.
Dude, it's been a while since anatomy class.
Yeah.
So it was 9 years ago.
So to give you an idea, so it actually, if you think of your your belly button, just goes straight back to the back of your spine. So that's why, when people say, oh, I have stomach pain, or we talk to a lot of patients, and you'd say well, how were you diagnosed, or what were your symptoms? And they're like, well, I had back pain, but I thought I was lifting something and I just strained my back. And that stems from because it's almost on your spine. And a lot of people say, well, I have abdominal pain. I felt like I had gas for 2 weeks. I couldn't get rid of it. Or I just pulled an abdominal muscle. And again, it's because it's there. But the other challenge is that because you have your stomach, you have all the anatomy that's in front of the pancreas.
Yeah.
So it sits so far back. So that's where the challenging part is from a clinical standpoint. It's hard, like breasts, we can feel our breasts, right? And other organs, other types of cancers, skin cancer, you can see things. With the pancreas, you just can't, and there's no, PSA, like for prostate, that's a blood test, and they can see where you're elevated. Like if your PSA is high, then they know you have prostate cancer potentially, and then they can go in and do things like that. Do other diagnostic testing. With pancreatic cancer, there isn't a blood test. There's nothing. The only thing that, is if you become symptomatic, which there's not a ton of them, but, rapid weight loss of appetite, jaundice is one of them, because sometimes what happens is the tumor grows and it restricts your bilirubin, from your gallbladder, from your bile duct, and that's why people get yellow, and like babies are yellow for a different reason, but that's how jaundice occurs in the body. So if you get really yellow, or abdominal pain, or lower back pain, is another symptom. Rashes, like crazy kind of rashes, just like random rashes. So there's really just like these handful of symptoms that people rely on to kind of realize. And when they do blood tests, like there's no definitive blood test. So what would happen is then you have to go in for imaging. And for some people, they can see the cancer, and for others, they just can't. So sometimes they have to do, like a endoscopy or an ERCP, which is a little bit more of a dramatic, more invasive endoscopic exam. So so the disease is just, there's just no early detection. There's a handful of symptoms, but everyone's different. I've been doing this now 7 years, and, is it seldom that two people will call, because we deal with a lot of patients, and have the same set of symptoms or go through the same course of how they were diagnosed. It's so wild how, we can get 10 people in the room, and I guarantee probably 8 out of the 10 had different symptoms or different types of experiences that came to the conclusion that they got the disease. And then you look at the cure, like there is no cure, like none of the treatments work. It's just kind of now what's happened in the science world. I mean, it's getting better, which is a good thing, but it depends on. You hear bells in church. I was like, is that someone's phone? Yeah. It's Sunday. The challenge too, from the science perspective and from the treatments, is we do know that clinical trials do prolong life for some people, not everyone. We still don't understand the basic biology of the disease. We need to do more. But there's only a handful of centers, honestly, guys. There's probably like 10 centers in the country that are really cutting edge and that are doing some amazing things. Mm-hmm. But like when we talk to a patient in southern Indiana, they can't get to Chicago. It's an 8-hour ride in the car, or it's, a 2-hour flight. And, when you have someone who's, at a weakened state, they can't just hop on a plane, or they don't have the finances. I think we're fortunate where we live here in New England. Like we're stuck between, Boston and New York, and there's some great medical centers. You got Hopkins down in Maryland. Right. But think about it. You're talking to even families, in the Mississippi Delta. They can't, MD Anderson's probably the closest major facility. So it's just really, really a challenge. So, what happens a lot of times that we see, people go to these rural settings, which is not a good or bad thing, but they just aren't equipped. Right. With the information and the treatments, and most of them do standard protocol, which in most cases, standard protocol, which is set by, the government and the standards of medicine and how insurance pays for your treatments, which is another story. Yeah. Just like Al Gore, he probably doesn't take credit for that, but, so to just get standard care really probably doesn't buy you any time or do any, it doesn't do any harm. It doesn't do any good. It is what it is. And so that's where, to go back to, there's just no early detection. So by the time, 75% are diagnosed, they'll die within the first 6 months because they're just diagnosed so late, and the disease has already advanced and metastasized into other organs. And at that point, it's like a wildfire, and there's no way to put that out. And then also from a treatment standpoint, there's no curative treatments. You're just basically buying time. So we've got to do a better job on both fronts, in early diagnosis. And part of that's awareness, I think, for us. And we've funded a lot of research through the past couple of years. And we just funded a early detection clinic in Nebraska where they're looking at, we do know genetically there are certain gene types that do mutate into the disease. We also know that people who have diabetes, and there's a new classification and talking about diet and health,
Absolutely.
what you guys
Yeah.
preach about working out, and we do as well with the running, which is another aspect that why we run, because it's a healthy thing to do, right? Like, it's healthy. Not running marathons every week is, but getting involved,
absolutely not.
getting off the couch, no, absolutely not. But we do know that people that are diabetic, there's a very small percentage that is potentially a precursor to the disease, and then people who have pancreatitis. So really fascinating subject. But so we're studying those 3 types of population in Nebraska to potentially follow them along the way to the disease, potentially. We hope not, but we do know percentage-wise some of them are going to get the disease, and hopefully we can learn from that. And, there's a ton of data and a ton of things that we can learn from that. So that's been our kind of approach with early detection, with one project that we funded out in Nebraska, and we've done some other things. So, that's the real reason, guys, why it's so bad is just there's no early detection. Most people are metastatic when diagnosed.
Yeah.
And have very little hope, and then there's just no cures.
Yeah.
So talk about, you mentioned getting better at like early diagnosis and things like that with pancreatic cancer. Talk about what Project Purple has done so far to kind of help speed this process up and get up to par, and what kind of the plans for the future are, and what the I guess some of the goals are, or the goal is.
I can't tell you all the secrets. But,
They have to kill us.
Yeah. No, so I think, awareness is really key, and awareness comes in so many ways. Doing this is hopefully raising awareness. So, and there's so much, I wouldn't say misinformation, but there's very little information. We were talking about breast cancer before, right? And breast cancer, has such a pool of alumni that can get out on stage and talk about, hey, their story, like, hey, I felt a lump and I went to my doctor and I was diagnosed and I went through treatment and protocol, and I'm here to say, like, if you feel a lump, go to your doctor. Lance Armstrong, I think, did a great job, for testicular cancer.
Absolutely.
Hey, if you feel something, go get it checked out. And, the warrior he was, and he was able to do that. And, there's various other cancers, skin cancer, I think, is another one too, where, hey, if you see a spot, so they've done a great job with that. So, I think the first key for us is really awareness. And that was something early on, like getting involved in marathons. And we've been involved, our first major marathon that we were ever involved with is a New York Marathon. And we started that relationship in 2012. Now, that's the biggest marathon in the world. And when I got involved, when I got the acceptance that we were involved in the New York City Marathon for 2012, I cried, man. I literally cried, because it was so emotional for me knowing that this is the world's biggest stage. And I knew that, hey, we needed to raise money. I wasn't naive to that fact, but we also needed to raise awareness. So to be in the biggest marathon in the world and be a charity in that program, is helpful in raising awareness. So, and our mission is to help find or to have a world without pancreatic cancer. I think the biggest impact that we make is awareness. And there's so much misinformation. Like, a lot of people, and this is partly, I think, personally, I think, the disease is so nasty, so evil. Like Vin was saying, 2 months or a month, people don't want to talk about that. I've met so many people just through sharing my story, and I had my dad in my life for 3.5 years battling, which I don't know if that was a blessing or if that was a curse. Maybe that motivated me to do what I do. But, it was hell, man. It was like Groundhog Day for the last 6 months, thinking, all right, this is the day my dad's going to die. But so, and the reason why I tell that is because I think people go through very similar experiences and they don't want to relive that, So like the awareness and helping us bring that to the table and getting people to talk about it is really critical, and it's almost like this movement, if we can get enough people excited in a positive way, with the events we're doing, CrossFit and running, to talk about the disease and then talk about like, hey, if you're yellow, or if you are experiencing rapid weight loss and you're not hungry and you have abdominal pain, like, go to your doctor. So that's really critical. And so that's one of the things I think, first off, right off the bat, being involved in all these major marathons, now being involved in the CrossFit community, going out to the games, and, we're going out to some other events in 2018, we've rolled out an ambassador program now where we've got some of these masters athletes that will be, promoting Project Purple. and helping to raise that awareness level is huge because we need that. Again, compared to breast cancer, which I'll use the example again, they have this alumni, Sheryl Crow gets up on stage and sings a song. Huge. It's huge. So that part is gigantic. And then, the research projects that we've always invested in, have been phenomenal. We love working with some of the best scientists in the world, and that's been our philosophy, is to try to end this sooner than later. I never envisioned this to be a career, but I'll embrace it, and it's not something that I want to pass on to my children like a Dunkin' Donuts franchise. Right, like, hey guys, here you go. I got 2 boys. Here, you run the ship now for the next 20 years. Right. I want to be out of this business in 10 years and do the next thing.
Right.
So we've always worked with some of the best and brightest scientists in the world. And those projects have ranged from, the early detection clinic in Nebraska. We funded a project at MD Anderson down in Houston last year, which was a new imaging technology, which is super fascinating. And these guys are extremely intelligent, and they're using sonar technology to see cancer at a cellular level, which the current imaging does not see, which you think like, all right, so we're on a podcast here. You're using your computer. We've got some mics, and your phones. We could do this, remotely.
Right.
But we can't see cancer better than the current technology. Like, it's just super. So to me, it's like super fascinating to see like the new technology that potentially we could, invest in. So we've done things like that. And then naturally, helping our patients and helping to raise awareness there. We've become now the country's leading provider of patient financial aid. This year alone, we've sent out 500 blankets. So if we ever hear about someone who's been diagnosed, whether it's from a runner or a person requesting a patient aid application, we automatically send them a blanket. And all that is just a symbol of hope to say, hey, you're not alone in your fight. And here's a blanket that hopefully will comfort you as you battle. When people go through chemotherapy treatments, their immune system gets kind of beat up and they get really cold even in the summertime. So the blanket's just this little token of appreciation for what they're doing. And, like I said, this year we've sent out 500. So that's another piece of, helping to bring awareness and then bring hope to the mission.
That's awesome.
Awesome, man. Where can plug all your stuff? Where can people find Project Purple and, of course, your personal social media accounts?
So, all right. So, Project Purple, naturally, our website's projectpurple.org. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think my Instagram's Dino Project Purple. It's a public account, and I'm on Facebook, and if people are battling pancreatic cancer or want to get involved, and whether it's CrossFit or endurance, by all means can reach out to me, reach out to the organization, and we'd love to get people involved in. And running and CrossFit is not all we do. We do a
plug it all, man.
We do a pizza eating contest in April.
I think Steve could win that.
I would love that.
We do Greek style pizza eating contest, and I will tell you 2018 will be the 4th year we've done it with one of our corporate partners in Seymour, and you weren't there this year.
I wasn't there for it,
but it's pretty interesting. This year we did relay style. We had teams of 2 eating.
Nice.
Everyone eats a medium pizza, and this year was cool because we did a women's division, a men's division amateur, a fire division. We had actually fire teams, like firefighters. It was really cool. The team from Madison, Connecticut won the fire division, and these guys were pretty big guys. And they finished the medium pizza, like the team, in like 4.5 minutes or something. Yeah, they devoured it. And then someone threw a beer to the guys, and they chugged 2 beers. Well, they chugged a
like
beer
Stone Cold.
Yeah, it was exactly like Stone Cold. Yeah, it was awesome. It was pretty awesome. God. But then we had a professional division, and the professional division was made up of these professional eaters. There's a league. God. I don't know if you guys knew. There's like a professional eating league.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so, but so you guys are in strength bodybuilding.
Right.
2 of the professionals were bodybuilders.
Yeah, usually
that doesn't surprise me.
So was a kid named Manny
Cambra. Yeah. So Manny and Nick Worley. I think Nick lives in Torrington or something. I mean, so, and PLR was there, Chaz and Pam. And So it was funny because Manny's pretty jacked, and he pulled
Manny's
off
very
his shirt.
jacked. We played against him in high school in football.
He's a big dude, man. But he ate his medium in like a minute 45.
He's a freak.
And then
What
he
an animal.
tied with the other guy who was the bodybuilder. So the tiebreaker was an ab off. And I was talking to the other guy. I didn't talk to Manny as much prior, but the other guy who's the bodybuilder, this guy Nick, really great guy. He's like, so I'm like, hey, you interested? We've got this professional division. I see you've eaten some professional contests. And he's like, what day is it? I'm like, gave him the date, and he's like, all right, I think that'll fit my dietary needs that day. And I was like, what
Cheat
are you
meal
talking
day.
about?
Cheat meal
yeah,
day.
well, that's what it was, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
And these
That's
guys,
hilarious.
But he devoured. They both like finished a medium pizza in like a minute 45.
Nice.
And then the DJ was like, oh, we got to have an ab off to break the tie. So these guys like take their shirts off and they're like flexing.
Did Manny win? Who won?
The other guy was pretty ripped.
Oh,
man.
okay.
He was going in. I don't think Manny was competing like
Right.
bodybuilding. I think he was just in really good shape.
Yeah.
The other guy said he had a contest in like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So he was pretty.
And he ate a
leaned out.
pizza? Wow. Good
yeah,
for him.
He was pretty.
That's
leaned
risky.
up. Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. So yeah, we do a lot of things outside of the running.
That's awesome.
And,
Yeah, that's
You know,
cool.
we've got a food truck event coming up in 2 weeks here in Beacon Falls, where we've got 12 food trucks coming in. We're closing down Main Street. We've got cornhole. We've got jumbo Jenga, as you guys can see. We've got the
Nice.
jumbo Jenga.
That's awesome.
We've got beer and entertainment. So, it's more of a fun event versus,
Yeah.
not to say that a marathon or a CrossFit competition or a CrossFit event is not fun. It's just
Right.
different.
Yeah, I got you.
Sweet. All right, cool. Well, yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. And,
Yeah, it was awesome.
anything we do, obviously let us know, and we'll continue to plug your guys' stuff. We love what you're doing. So,
Cool.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us.
Cool. Awesome.
right.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
Want more of the Strength Students podcast? Go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, make sure you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and on Stitcher. Stitcher, I just met her. And we are back, everybody. That
We're here.
was Project Purple. Great episode with those guys. Those are good dudes, man.
They're very nice. And it's always cool because, they're right in Connecticut, right in Beacon
Yeah.
Falls. And we're from Connecticut.
And they're good dudes, man. You could tell they're very passionate, and from listening to them talk, you guys could obviously see that this has affected them personally very greatly.
Yeah.
In their personal lives, it's definitely affected them. So for them to just start this whole thing and just get awareness going is
Yeah.
key. I mean, look at breast cancer awareness, the strides that breast cancer has made. Simply not just from the awareness, but that's been a big factor.
Yeah,
over the
that's
past decade or two, like breast cancer awareness was huge. So
Yeah.
these guys are kind of starting the journey there.
Yeah, I thought
Which is
actually
dope.
our former guest Siobhan hooked us up with Vin, one of the guys we interviewed. He so I want to thank her for that. It was
Thank you, Siobhan.
Yeah, the second I talked to him on the phone, and he was like, "Yeah, we'd like to come on, blah blah blah," and he told me about losing his friends' mothers to cancer and all that stuff. For those of you who don't know, I lost my mother to breast cancer when I was a kid, long time ago, 1994. But yeah, the strides it's made, because back then they didn't really know what the hell to do.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And they're trying to do that same push for pancreatic cancer. So I mean, how could you not support them? And yeah, I really liked doing this episode. This was dope. Close to heart, doing something, helping them out, trying to get the word out.
For sure.
Loved it.
For sure. All right, before we wrap it up, guys, we're going to do a segment called Netflix and Chill. So we are going to kind of take a little right turn here and go a little bit into pop culture and talk about what's on Netflix, man. What have we been watching on Netflix, and what are we going to recommend to you? So, Nick, we'll start with you. What have you been Netflix and chilling with, bruh?
So we'll start with my third one. I got Big Mouth, it's called. It's for those of you that know
Great
Nick
show.
Kroll. Nick Kroll, the comedian. It's a cartoon about kids going through puberty in middle school. It's so raunchy and so ridiculous.
But it's so spot on.
It's
with,
so
puberty.
spot on. I can't tell you how many times like we're sitting there watching it with a bunch of people, and you're like, yeah, I did that. I
Every
did that
day.
in middle school. Like you and your first girlfriend break up, and you're like, I'm never gonna love anyone ever again. And it's just your hormones just take over.
So good.
Oh my God, there's so many memories. Anyways, that show is fucking hilarious. Number 2, what I've been watching, series that I'm kind of hooked on right now is called Minehunters. This is something I've always been into. It's It's actually based on true stories. All these people in it are not real. They're actors playing them, but it's based off real stuff. So FBI agents go around interviewing serial killers to kind of get into their psyche and see like why they did what they did, which is something I always find super interesting. Like what, growing up, what led this person to turn into Charles Manson, or what led this person to, start decapitating people and having sex with their dead body. Like you're like, well, how does someone get there? So
normal stuff, yeah.
Yeah, usual stuff. So I've been absolutely obsessed with that show. All the serial killers they've had on her, I've checked. They're real people, and they were really in jail. And it's pretty insane what these guys have done. Hooked on that right now. I'm probably going to finish that as soon as I leave here. And then I watched Generation Iron 2. So it's not a series, but it's for those of you that watched the first Generation Iron, it's that was about more like just bodybuilding, like Kai Green versus Phil Heath. Going to the Mr. Olympia contest, kind of like a Pumping Iron 2 in a way.
Yeah, it was like the modern day Pumping Iron.
Yeah, first one was pretty cool, seeing them. This one is way more different people. It's more about, if I had to sum it up, it's about like the actual bodybuilders who have competed and like they've done their whole lives and all this stuff. Like guys like Lee Haney and Gaspari and Jay Cutler and all the Olympia guys, right? Dorian Yates. Versus like the social media famous people. So like the guys that like
very cool.
Rich Piana and Callum Von Monger's like this super handsome jacked Australian dude. He eats like burgers and he eats like popsicles, like doesn't really count or weigh his food and just goes on stage and like kills it. And some of the old timers are like a little pissed, because that's like, well, he's not a real. It's just back and forth. Guys that have millions of followers on YouTube versus guys that have actually done it and competed.
True.
So there's a little bit of that back and forth, which I thought was interesting. And they show like Kai Green going into acting. And that's a perfect segue because Kai Green
is in Stranger Things too.
Hell yeah.
So my two, I only have two. My two Netflix and chill shows that I've been watching. First one I'll say is Rick and Morty. If you haven't gotten on the Rick and Morty train yet,
oh my God,
get on it.
The best.
Okay, so I understand that most of you probably know what it is at this point. It's gained a lot of popularity. It's been around for a while, but it's just starting to really gain a lot of popularity. It's essentially Rick, who is a mad scientist, and his grandson Morty, and they go on all these like crazy galactic adventures to like different planets and different time periods, and it's just like a straight up Adult Swim, hilarious adult cartoon comedy. And essentially it was the writers, when they first wrote it, it was apparently kind of like a spoof-ish of Back to the Future.
Yeah, it seems like
with Doc and Marty,
yeah.
Rick and Morty.
Right.
But like more of a cartoon, raunchy, like funny, hilarious. It's a fucking trip, and it's so funny, and it actually is a little mind blowing too. Like some of the things they do and talk about and discover, it kind of makes you think a little bit, a little provocative. And then my number two is Stranger Things 2. That's out. I'm sure most of you have gotten on that a little bit. Most of you have gotten on that already. Sorry, but yeah. So speaking of Kai Green, he's actually in Stranger Things 2, which I didn't know that before I watched it, and then I'm watching one of the episodes. And I'm like, that dude looks familiar. It's like Kai Green on Stranger Things 2.
Why is he 7 times the size of everybody on set?
But Stranger Things 2 is really awesome. I personally only watched like 3 episodes of season 1 and then watched the entire second season a couple days ago. But still got it. Missed a couple things, but I would even say overall, if you haven't even seen Stranger Things 1, like you could probably still watch. But you could probably still watch Stranger Things 2.
Because I watched the whole first season, and I went to the second season, and I forgot shit. Like I needed the recap.
Yeah.
The whole first.
Oh yeah, Netflix does a recap too. Oh, also Netflix. Like I don't know how long this has been around, but you could skip like the intros of shows now.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Any other Netflix chills?
That's it, man.
That's it. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us this week. Project Purple. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you guys go give us a 5-star review on iTunes and on Stitcher. Give us your feedback. Go to our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Go subscribe. Everything's at Strength Students Podcast, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Deuces.